ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Namaskar, my dear friends. This is the third video on the topic teachings of Maharishi Ramana on subtle terms which are very useful for understanding for the devotees who are undergoing the practice of self-enquiry for self-realization. So this is the third video on this sequence. So the topic is states of consciousness. Existence or consciousness is the only reality. Consciousness plus waking we call waking. Consciousness plus sleep we call sleep. Consciousness plus dream we call dream. Consciousness is the screen on which all the pictures come and go. The screen is real, the pictures are mere shadows on it. There is only one state, that of consciousness or awareness in existence. The three states, waking, dream, and sleep, cannot be real. They come and go, the real will always exist. By long habit, we have been regarding the three states as real. We call the state of mere awareness the fourth Turiya. Vidyarna in the 10th chapter of the Panchadasi gives an example of the light kept on the stage of the theatre. When a drama is being played, the light is there without any distinction of all the actors, whether kings, servants, dancers, etc. The light will be there before the drama begins, during the performance, and also after the performance is over. Similarly, the light of consciousness is within, gives light to the mind without itself being subject to alteration, alternation, or the process of decay. It is not correct to say that one is nearer to pure consciousness in deep sleep than in the waking state. The deep, dream, and the waking states are mere phenomena appearing on the self. It is also the state of simple awareness. Can one remain away from his self at any moment? There is no difference between the dream and the waking states except that the dream is short and the waking long. Both are the result of the mind. Our real state, called the fourth Turiya, is beyond the waking, dream, and the sleep states. You might have eaten heartily before going to sleep. You dream and in the dream feel hungry. You yourself feel the hunger. So long as the dream lasts, the suffering is real. It is only when you wake up that you find the problem to be unreal. The hunger in the dream has to be appeased by dream food. You can never mix up the two states, dream and waking. Similarly, till you attain the state of realization and wake out of the illusory phenomenal world, it will appear real. If some good man says, let all the people in the world get realization, it does not matter if I don't. If I can just help others to get it, the therefore, that is like a dreamer saying that all the people in the dream wake up before I do. He would be no more absurd than his amiable philosopher. The obstacles to self-avoidance are distractions by things of the world, including sense objects, desires, and tendencies on the one hand, and sleeps on the other. Sleep is also mentioned in some books as the first obstacle to samadhi, and various means are prescribed for overcoming it. I don't understand why people should be afraid of the state in which all thoughts cease to exist. They daily experience it in sleep. There is no mind or thought in sleep. Yet, when one rises from sleep, he says, I slept well. Limitation is only in the mind. Did you feel it in deep sleep? The difference between waking and sleeping are due to the mind. There is no mind in sleep, whereas it is now active. What we have to do is to bring deep sleep into the waking state to get conscious sleep. The states of deep sleep, waking, and dream are of the ego. The self is the witness of all. The self transcends them all. The consciousness should be found. Holding on to the reality is samadhi, absorbs in the self. Now, next most important state, the term is samadhi. Holding on to the reality is samadhi, absorption in the self. Holding to samadhi with effort is savikalpa samadhi. Merging in reality and remaining unaware of the world is nirvikalpa samadhi. Merging unconsciously and remaining unaware of the world is sleep. Remaining in the primal, pure, natural state without effort is sahaja nirvikalpa samadhi. In yoga, there are various kinds of samadhi, but the samadhi I speak about is different. It is sahaja samadhi. In this state, you remain calm and composed during activity. You realize that you are moved by a larger real self and are unaffected by what you do or say or think. You have no worries, anxieties, or cares, for you realize that there is nothing which belongs to you as ego, and that everything is being done by something with which you are in conscious union. The final obstacle to meditation is ecstasy. When you feel when you feel great bliss and happiness, the tendency is to stay in that ecstasy. Do not yield to this, but pass on to the sixth stage, which is great calm. The calm is higher than ecstasy and it merges into samadhi. Successful samadhi causes a waking sleep state to encompass you. When you are always consciousness, for consciousness is your nature. Hence, a person is always in samadhi, only they do not know it. All one has to do is to remove the obstacle I have just mentioned. When we have tendencies, we are trying to give up. That is to say, when we are still imperfect and have to make conscious efforts to keep the mind free of thought, the thought free state we thus attain in nirvikalpa samadhi when the thought when through practice we are constantly in that state, not going into samadhi and coming out of it again. That is the sahaja natural state. In that sahaja state, one sees only the self and one sees the world as the form assumed by the self. The state in which the unbroken experience of existence consciousness is attained by the still mind alone is samadhi. The Nirvikalpa Samadhi of Raja Yoga may have its use, but in Jnana Yoga, this natural state or Sahaja Nishtha, abidance in the natural state itself is the Nirvikalpa state. In this natural state, the mind is free from doubts. It has No need to swing between the alternatives of possibilities and probabilities. It sees no difference of any kind. It is sure because of it. It feels the presence of the real. Even when it is active, it knows it inactive in the reality, the self. In deep sleep, the mind is merged, not destroyed. That which is merged reappears. It may happen in meditation also, but the mind which is destroyed cannot reappear. The yogi's aim must be to destroy it and not to sink into a state of unconsciousness. One who accustoms himself naturally to meditation and enjoys the bliss of meditation will not lose his samadhi state or whenever external work he does, whatever thoughts may come to him. That is Sahaja Nirvikalpa. One's abidance in one's own nature as a flame of knowledge after completely discarding sense objects, it is called the natural state. Next is illusion. We talk of attaining the self or of reaching God in time, but there is nothing to attain. We are already self existence, nor will there ever be a time when we shall be nearer to God than now. We are ever blissful, self existent, the infinite now. Our consciousness is unbroken, continuous, and eternal. It is all illusions, self hypnotism to imagine that now we are otherwise. Dehypnotize yourself. It is ego which deludes itself that there are two selves, one which we are conscious of now, the person, and the other, the higher, the divine, of which we shall one day become conscious. This is false. There is only one real self, oneself, and it is fully conscious now and forever. There is neither past, present, nor future for it, since it is out of time. The illusion created by the mind must be destroyed by the mind itself. Now, fate, free will, and beyond. The Creator, Brahma, remaining everywhere, makes each one play his or her role according to his or her fate. That which is not destined will not happen despite every effort. What is destined is bound to happen. This is certain. Therefore, the best course is to remain silent. All the activities that the body is to go through are determined when it comes into existence. It does not rest with you to accept or reject them. The only freedom you have to turn your mind inward and renounce activities there. Everything is predetermined. Why does the body come into existence? Why does the body comes into existence? It is designed for the various things that are marked out for it in this life. As for freedom, a man is always free not to identify himself with the body and not to be affected by the pleasures and pains consequent on its activities. Those who know that what is to be experienced by them in this life is only what is already destined in their prarabdha karma to be worked out in this lifetime will never feel perturbed about what is to be experienced. Know that all experience will be thrust upon whether one wills them or not. If the agent upon whom the karma depends, namely the ego, which has come into existence between the body and the self, merges in its source and loses its form, how can the karma which depends upon it survive? When there is no I, there is no karma. To say that Prarabdha remains for the wise as well is in reply to the question put by ignorant. Realize that just as after the husband is dead, no unwidowed wife would remain. Even so, when the doer is gone, the threefold karma, destiny arising as a result of actions, the consequence of actions, the law of cause and effect, action, hence karma, yoga, the yoga of action would also go. The truth is the enlightened sage has transcended all karmas including prarabdha karma and he is not bound by the body or its karmas. If one inquires who is the doer and enters the heart, the doership idea will end and the triple karma is destroyed. This is indeed liberation. Not even an iota of prarabdha exists for those who attend to the space of consciousness, which always shines as I am, which pervades everywhere without limitations. Such alone is the meaning of the ancient saying, there is no fate for those who experience the heavens. So long as the feeling I am doing is there, one must experience the result of one's acts, whether they are good or bad. Free will exists together with the individuality. As long as the individuality lasts, so long is there free will. All the scriptures are based on this fact and advise directing the free will in the right channel. Find out who it is who has free will or predestination and abide in that state. Then both are transcended. That is the only purpose in discussing these questions. To whom do such questions present themselves? Discover that and at peace and be at peace. As long as a man is the doer, he also reaps the fruits of his deeds. But as soon as he realizes the self through inquiry as to who the doer is, his sense of being the doer falls away and the triple karma is ended. This is the state of eternal liberation. The controversy whether fate is stronger than free will or vice versa is only for those who do not know the source. Those who know that individual to whom they pertain remains untouched by them. Free will is implied in the spiritual injunction to be good. It implies overcoming fate. It is done by wisdom. Wisdom is acquired by association with the wise. Free will and destiny are ever existent. Destiny is the result of the past actions. It concerns the body. Let the body act as may suit it. Why are you concerned about it? Why do you pay attention to it? Free will and destiny last as long as the body lasts. But true knowledge of the self, jnana, transcends both. The self is beyond knowledge and ignorance. Whatever happens, happens as the result of one's past actions of divine will and of other factors. There are only two ways to conquer destiny or be independent of it. One is to inquire for whom is this destiny and discover that only the ego is bound by destiny and not the self and that the ego is non-existent. The other way is to kill the ego by completely surrendering to the Lord by realizing one's helplessness and saying all the time, not I but thou, O Lord, and giving up all sense of I and mine and leaving it to the Lord to inquire on the path of devotion. Ah, and leaving it to the Lord to do what He likes with you. Complete effacement of the ego is necessary to conquer destiny. Whether you achieve this effacement through self inquiry or the path of devotion. There are only two ways in which to conquer destiny or by independent of it. One is to inquire who undergoes the destiny and discover the self is not bound by it. The other way is to completely surrender to the Lord by realizing one's helplessness. You doubt the statement that the realized man has no further karma. Why should you bother about the what he does or why he does anything? Look after yourself. Reincarnation. If there is birth, there must be not only one rebirth but a whole succession of the birth. Why and how did you get this birth? For the same reason and in the same manner you must have succeeding births. You do not know what you were before birth, yet you want to know what you will be after death. Do you know what you are now? Both birth and rebirth pertains to the body. Birth and rebirth are mentioned only to make you investigate the question and find out that there is neither death nor birth. They relate to the body, not to the self. Know your real being, and these questions will not arise. Whatever is born must die. Whatever is acquired must be lost. But were you born? You are eternally existing. The self can never be lost. The interval between death and rebirth may be long or short, but a realized person undergoes no such change. He merges into the infinite being. Some say that those who after death take the path of light are not reborn. If a man's merits and demerits are equal, he is born immediately on earth. If merit outweigh the demerits, his subtle body goes first to heaven, wh- while if demerits outweigh merits, he goes to hell. But in either case, he is reborn later on earth. All this is described in the scriptures, but in fact, there is neither birth nor death, or if one simply remains as what one really is. The birth of a person and the death of a person appear real because one wrongly identifies himself with the body and think of the other also as a body. However, the birth of the I thought is a person's birth and its death is his death. For it is only after the I thought has arisen, then the wrong identification arises. Identifying yourself with the body makes you falsely identify others also with their bodies. But if you cease to identify yourself with the body and realize the true self, this confusion will vanish. You ask what happens to a person after death. Engage yourself in the living present. The future will take care of itself. Don't worry about the future. There is neither past nor future. There is only the present. Yesterday was present when you experienced it, and tomorrow it will be present when you experience. Therefore, experience takes place only in the present. In whatever plane the mind happens to act, it creates a body for itself. In the physical world, a physical body, and in the dream world, a dream body, which becomes wet with dream rain and sick with dream disease. Sick with dream disease. After the death of the physical body, the mind remains inactive for some time, as in dreamless sleep when it remains bodiless. But soon it becomes active again in a new body, the astral, till it assumes another body in what is called a rebirth. But Jnani, the self-realized person whose mind has already ceased to act, remains unaffected by death. The chain of illusions have snapped for him. It should be clear that there is neither real birth nor real death. It is the mind which creates and maintains the illusion of reality in this process till it is destroyed by self realization. It should be clear that there is neither real birth nor real death. It is the mind which creates and maintains the illusion of reality in this process till it is destroyed by self realization. When one begins to die, hard breathing sets in. That means that one has become unconscious of the dying body. The mind at once takes hold of another body and it swings to and fro between the two until attachment is fully transferred to the new body. Meanwhile, there are occasional violent breaths, and that means that mind is swinging back to the dying body. The transitional state of the mind is somewhat like a dream. You are incarnated now, are not you? Then you will be so again. As the body is illusion, then the illusion will repeat itself until you find the real self. When the ego leaves the body, it must immediately grasp another body. It cannot exist without a body. The I thought, the ego, will recur again only each time you identify it with a different body and different surroundings around the body. It is karma which has placed you in this particular body and placed it in a particular family, race, sex, etc. Food regulation. Fasting should be chiefly mental, abstention from thoughts. Mere abstinence from food will do no good. It will even upset the mind. Spiritual unfoldment would come rather by regulating eating. The Vedantic text, particularly Vichara Sangraha, which strongly recommend fasting, do not mean that one should abstain from eating or drinking water. All that it means that without causing hardship to the body, one should eat a limited quantities of food conducive to meditation. Sar- Sattvic food like bread, fruit, vegetables, milk in moderate quantities is suitable for a person engaged in spiritual practice. The quality of one's food influences the mind. The mind feeds on the food consumed. The necessary food value is obtainable in vegetarian food. Only the mind desires the sort of food that it is used to and which it considers palatable. The realized sage is stabilized in the self and is not influenced by the food he takes in. It is mental fasting that is the real aid. Fasting is not an end in itself. There must be spiritual development at the same time. Absolute fasting weakens the mind too and leaves you without sufficient strength for spiritual quest. Therefore, eat in moderation and continues the quest. There are subtle essence in all food. It is that which affects the mind. Hence, for those who are endeavoring to practice meditation to find the self, There have been dieting rules laid down which are advisable to follow. Sattvic food promotes meditation, whereas Rajasic and Tamasic food hinder it. Regulation of diet, restricting it to sattvic food takes in moderate quantities is the best of all rules of conduct and most conductive to the development of sattvic pure qualities of the mind. There in turn help one to practice self-inquiry. For sadhana, what is needed is sattvic food and satsang. Meat eating should be avoided. There are no other rules. As for the rules of conduct which an aspirant should follow, it is moderation in food, moderation in sleep, and moderation in speech. Postures. The postures, asana or seat in the heart is peaceful and given happiness. There is no need for any other asana for those seated in that one. That is called Sukhasana, the asana of happiness. Any posture, possibly the easy or half buddhi, Buddha. But that is immaterial for self-realization. The properties and effects of a tiger's skin or bull or deer skin as a seat are described in books on yoga. They corresponding to conductors and non-conductors of magnetism and so on. But all this is not of importance on the path of knowledge. Posture really means steadfastness in the self and it is inward. One pointedness of the mind is the best posture. Many postures and their effects are mentioned in Yoga Sastras. The postures are lotus posture, easy postures, and so on. Why all this only to know oneself? The truth is that the ego rises from the self, confuses itself with the body, and then it thinks wildly and looks for answers. When covered by egoistic conceit, a person does not understand that he himself is the center of all and thus form the basis for all. Remaining firm in one's real state is the real posture. Attaining the steadiness of not swerving from the knowledge of the base, the self alone is the firm and motionless posture of excellent samadhi. In a society, and next is society. In a society comprising of followers of different ways of life, society is like the body and individuals are like its limbs. And individual prosper, prospers by working for the good of society like a limb being useful for the body. One should build up one's own inner circle and make it prosperous so that it may serve the interest of society and make it also prosperous. Brotherhood based on equality is the supreme goal of human society. Though the brotherhood, peace and amity will prevail among mankind and the world will flourish like a single household, self-reform automatically results in social reform. Attend to self-reform and social reform will take care of itself. To engage oneself in doing good to others will develop the idea of good in the heart. That is enough good. God and love are all the same thing. If a person keeps continuously thinking of any of these, it will be enough. When you seek to reduce the suffering of any fellow man or fellow creature, whether your efforts succeed or not, you yourself are evolving spiritually, especially if such service is rendered with detachment, not with the egoistic feeling, I am doing this service. The feeling should be God is making me the channel of this service. He is the doer, I am the instrument. You must love all and help all because it is only in that way you can help yourself. Next is renunciation. Renunciation is always in the mind, not in going to forest or solitary places or giving up one's duties. The main thing is to see that the mind does not turn outward but inward. Renunciation does not imply apparent divesting of costumes, family ties, home, etc. But renunciation of desires, affection, and attachment. There is no need to resign your job, only resign to God. Expression of love and affection would be a far better form for true devotees of God than renunciation. When this expression comes, one does not feel he is running away from home. Instead, one drops from it like a ripe fruit from a tree. Renunciation of love and affection would be a far better form for a true devotee of God than renunciation. When expression of love and affection would be a far better form for a true devotee of God than renunciation. When this expression comes, one does not feel he is running away from home. Instead, one draws from it like a ripe fruit from a tree. Renunciation and realization are the same. They are different aspects of the same state. Giving up non-self is renunciation. Inhering in the self is jnana. One is the negative and the other the positive aspect of the same single truth. Renunciation is the giving up of the ego. It not only the giving up of possession but the possessor too. The only freedom you have is to turn the mind inwards and renounce activities there. Asked how does a householder fare is the scheme of liberation. Bhagwan said, why do you think you are a householder? If you go out as a ascetic, sannyasi, a similar thought that you are a ascetic will haunt you. Whether you continue in the household or renounce it or go to the forest, your mind goes with you. The ego is the source of all thought. It creates the body and the world and makes you think you are a householder. If you renounce the world, it will be only substitute the thought, ascetic for householder and the environment of the forest for that of the household. But the mental obstacles will still be there. They even increase in the new surroundings. There is no help in science of environment. The obstacle is the mind. It must be get over or whether or at home or in the forest. If you can do in the forest, why not at home? Therefore, why change your environment? Your efforts can be made even now. In whatever environment you are now, the environment will never change according to your desire. Miracles. Self-abidance alone is a miracle, Siddhi. The other miracles are like dreams, which still, till working can those firmly rooted in the real relapse into illusion. Although powers appear wonderful to those who do not possess them, yet, yet they are only transient. It is useless to aspire for the transient. All these wonders are contained in the changeless self. Miracles, wonders, clairvoyance, clairaudience. What are these? The greatest miracle is the to realize the self. All these are side tracks. The realized man is above them. Charles Webster Leadbeater describes hundreds of former lives seen by clairvoyance. Of what use is this? Does it help him or others to know the self? What are these lives but bodies' births? The true birth is in the self. You could be in England now astrally, but would you be better off? You will not be a bit nearer to realization. What good will supernatural powers siddhis do? Suppose you exercise all these wonderful powers, have you tossed worry out of your mind? If happiness is your real goal, you must ultimately come back from your diversion with siddhis and try to find yourself by inquiring who it is that wants the happiness. People who desire powers are inclined to neglect the supreme happiness of realization for the sake of powers. In search of these, they follow by lanes instead of high road and so risk losing their way. In order to guide them right and keep them on the highest, they are told that powers accompany realization. Let people first get realization, then seek power if they want to. In order to display powers, there must be others to recognize them. That means there is no jnana in one who displays them. Therefore, powers are not worth a thought. Self-realization alone is to be aimed at and got. Whether powers are high or low, whether of mind or of supermind. They exist only with a reference to the one who has the power. Find out who that is. What difference does it make to see or hear anyone in close proximity or over enormous distance? The organs of sight and hearing are used in both cases, and so the mind also is required. There is dependence one way or the other. Moreover, what is acquired will also be lost in the course. These powers can never be permanent. Greedy, greedily begging for worthless occult powers from God, who will readily give himself, who is everything, is like begging for worthless, stale gruel from a generous minded philanthropist who will readily give everything. The conduct of those who say we shall gain all supernormal powers, not realizing that they are moved by divine power, is like the story of a layman who said, if I am helped to stand, where will these enemies be? These are different kinds of siddhis. They are the manifestation of power and knowledge, which is quite natural. When you realize the self, they come of their own accord. They are God given. When you are in the state of realization, you will know what these powers are. To remain unchanged in the state of self is the eternal siddhi, the greatest of all siddhis. All other siddhis are only the prarabdha, that is completed karma of the jnani who has realized the truth. These other siddhis are trivial. Practicing of siddhi will remain flatten the ego will more. The greatest siddhi is not to see anything other than the self. All the siddhis will come and go. Wait upon the perfected jnani to realize the self which is always present and to remain as that is the real siddhi. All other siddhis are like those which appear in a dream. Are they real when one awake? Will those have got rid of delusion and are established in their true state be deluded again? Happiness is the very nature of the self. Happiness and the self are not different. There is no happiness in any object of the world. We imagine through our ignorance that we derive happiness from objects. When the mind goes out, it experiences misery. In truth, when its desires are fulfilled, it returns to its own place and enjoys the happiness that is the self. Similarly, in the states of sleep, samadhi, and fainting, and when the object desired is obtained or the object dislike is removed, the mind becomes inward turned and enjoys pure self happiness. Thus, the mind moves without rest, alternatively going out of the self and returning to it. Under the tree, the shade is pleasant, out in the open, the heat is scorching. A person who has been going about in the sun feels cool when he reaches the shade. Someone who keeps on going from the shade into the sun and then back into the shade is a fool. A wise man stays permanently in the shade. Similarly, the mind of the one who knows the truth does not leave reality. The mind of the ignorant, on the contrary, revolves in the world, feeling miserable, and for a little time return to reality to experience happiness. In fact, what is called the world is only thought. When the world disappears, that is when there is no thought, the mind experiences happiness, and when the world appears, it goes through misery. All beings desire happiness, always happiness without a tinge of sorrow. At the same time, everybody lives himself best. The causes for this love is only happiness, so that happiness must lie in one's self. Further, that happiness is daily experienced by everyone in sleep when there is no mind. To attain that natural happiness, one must know oneself. For that, self inquiry is the chief means. Happiness is the nature of the self. Self is Self is not other than perfect happiness. Knowing that fact and abiding as the self enjoy bliss eternally. If man thinks his happiness is due to eternal causes and his possessions, it is reasonable to conclude that his happiness must increase with the increase of possessions and diminish in proportion to its diminution. Therefore, if he is devoid of possessions, his happiness should be nil. What is the real experience of man? Does it conform to this view? In deep sleep, man is devoid of possessions, including his own body. Instead of being unhappy, he is happy. The conclusion is that happiness is inherent in man and not due to external causes. Know then that true knowledge does not create anything new for you. It only removes your ignorance. Bliss is not added to your nature. It is merely revealed as your true natural state, eternal and imperishable. Every being in the world yearns to be happy. Yet, due to ignorance of the real nature of their own being, which is happiness itself, people flounder in the vast ocean of material existence. Bliss is sometimes which is always there, both when the blissful feeling was experienced and when it was not. It is something which comes and goes. That which comes and goes is the creation of the mind, and you should not worry about it. When you leave this place, you say you are unhappy. Therefore, this place is not permanent. It is mixed with the unhappiness felt in another place. It follows that you cannot find bliss in place and in period of time. It must be permanent in order that it may be useful. It is your own being that is permanent. Be the self, and that is bliss. You are always that. Jnani, a jnani, self-realized being is in ever-waking state. Because he is awake to the eternal self, he is in the ever-dreaming state. Because to him the world is no better than a repeatedly presented dream phenomenon. He is in the ever-sleeping state because he is at all times without the body and eye consciousness. One who knows the self has nothing more to do, nor has he any more thoughts. From them on, the infinite power will carry out all further actions that may be necessary for him. The body itself is a disease. To wish for a long stay of that disease is not the aim of the jnani. Anyhow, one has to give up identification with the body, just as the I am the body consciousness prevents one from attaining self-knowledge. In the same way, one who has got the conviction that he is not the body will become liberated even if he doesn't desire it. The Jnani has attained liberation even while alive. Here and now, it is immaterial to him as to how, where, and when he leaves the body. Some Jnanis may appear to suffer, others may be in samadhi, still others may disappear from sight before death, but that makes no difference to their realization. Such suffering is apparent, seems real to the onlooker, but it is not felt by the Jnani, for he has already transcended the mistaken identity of the self with the body. The Jnani does not think he is in the body, he does not even see the body, he sees only the self in the body. If the body is not there but only the self, the question of its disappearing in any form does not arise. At the, po- as the porter hired to carry luggage puts it down at journey's end and says he is happy at the time he has to share the body's burden. The Jnani is the unmoving, non-dual one without any desire. The Jnani does dream in the same way as he knows his waking state to be a dream. You may call them dream number one, dream number two. The Jnani being established in the fourth state, Turiya, detachedly witnesses the three other states, waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep as pictures imposed on it. Who can understand the state of one who has dissolved the ego and is abiding always in the self? For him, the self alone is. What remains for him to do? The radio sings and speaks, but if you open it, you will find no one inside. Similarly, my existence is like the space. Though this body speaks like the radio, there is no one inside as the doer. I have said that equality is the true sign of self-realization. The very term equality implies the existence of difference. It is a unity that the Jnani perceives in all differences, which I call equality. True, a Jnani appreciates the distinction based on sound, taste, form, wealth, smell, etc., but he always perceives and experiences the one reality in all of them. That is why he has no preferences. Whether he moves about or talks or acts, it is all the one reality in which he acts or moves or talks. Beyond the reach of words extend the sage's greatness. None but he can know his state of being, vaster than the sky and then the mountain, firmer to experience it yourself. You should first shed your own body consciousness. The peace of mind which permeates the sense atmosphere is the one means by which the seeker understands the greatness of the saint. The child and Jnani are similar in a way, incidents inherent in the child only so long as they last. It ceases to think of them after they have passed away. It is apparent that they do not leave any impression on the child and it is not affected by them mentally. So it is with a Jnani. In liberation and self-knowledge, there is no difference between men and women. The body of a woman liberated while alive is not cremated as it is a temple of God. Withdrawal from all activity, from all thoughts is not what is meant by true realization, jnana. If so, what is the difference between this state and sleep? Great men are said to be very active and are indeed active. The jnani is never dependent on the laws of dharma, which however depend on him for their validity and proof. His activities constitute the source and sport of dharma. He remains aloof, a mere spectator of his own activity and is never lost in it. To judge by miracles and greatness of a seer self-realized is like measuring the sun's intense bright and pretty pattern wrought by a stray pink beam and shines through tiny hole in the roof. The great one, free from mind's movement, are truly happy, never leaving mother's lap and playing the fat amply and milk of bliss. Thank you for watching this video. Please share, like and comment and please subscribe my channel. Thank you my dear friend. Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar.